She rolled her eyes the moment she saw me in the coat. "Oh, for God's sake, Mother," she sighed, loud enough for the shop assistant to hear. "Why are you wasting money again?" That was the word that stuck. Again. As if I were some frivolous child with a credit card, and not a 78-year-old woman who once balanced the books of 4 different companies with a pencil and a black notebook. The coat wasn't extravagant, just a clean, sharp wool trench in ash blue, with dark buttons and a high collar. It fit well, looked smart, cost more than the flimsy jackets they sell by the dozen in department stores, but it was stitched properly, made to last. I'd saved for it for months. I'd tried it on 3 times before. Today, I finally allowed myself the small luxury of walking out of the store with it. Claire made a face like I'd shown up in feathers and sequins. "This is what you needed to spend money on? Really?" she asked, arms crossed, already stepping toward the escalator without waiting for me. The girl behind the counter, barely 20, gave me a sympathetic look as she slipped the coat into its protective bag. I nodded, smiled, as if it didn't matter, as if it didn't sting. Claire had offered to drive me to the shopping center that morning. Not out of kindness. She needed to pick up a cake for her manager's birthday, and her husband took their SUV to a golf tournament. I was just cargo, a pit stop between her errands. In the car, she talked mostly about work, her new team leader, some project she wasn't getting recognition for. "They always overlook me," she said, punching her blinker. "I do everything. I train the new girls, fix the messes. But no promotion, no title." She'd said the same thing last year and the year before, each time with a little more bitterness, a little more venom. And each time, she ended with the same complaint. "Honestly, I think it's because I don't kiss up to anyone." I didn't respond. Over the years, I'd learned not to. Claire didn't want advice. She wanted agreement. And if you didn't offer it, she'd accuse you of being out of touch, of not understanding how modern companies work. "I guess things were different when you were working, huh?" she once said, as if I'd counted buttons in a village shop and not run payroll for 24 employees across state lines. When we got home, she didn't help carry the bags. Said she was late for her Zoom meeting. "Just don't go overboard next time, okay?" she added, before the door closed behind her. I stood in my hallway with the coat bag dangling from one hand and a quiet rising in my chest that I didn't know what to do with. Was it anger? No. Something colder, more final. I hung the coat on the hook by the stairs, took off my shoes, went into the kitchen, made tea, sat by the window with the same blue mug I'd used every morning since Charles died. For years, I'd believed that silence was a form of grace, that letting things go was noble. But silence, I've learned, becomes a permission slip. And grace, when repeated too often, starts to look a lot like weakness. Claire had become a woman who spoke to me like I was an inconvenience. A woman who asked for financial help without once asking how I was doing. A woman who called me only when she needed babysitting, or a ride, or a check. And I had allowed it, again and again. I looked at my bank statements spread across the table. Tuition payments, car insurance, a private math tutor for Ethan, ballet classes for little Sophie, grocery bills, dental procedures, tax consultancy. For that time, Claire and Jeremy got audited. All of it, through me, never with gratitude, always with assumption. And now I wasn't even allowed a coat. I opened my laptop. It still felt foreign to me, even after years of use. But I managed. I opened my email, typed the name, Kathleen Morrison. She was my former assistant, now a CFO for a consulting firm. We hadn't spoken in years, but I'd read about her in the local paper last month. I'd trained her when she was just 22, sharp, methodical, all edges and fire. Subject line: A quiet inquiry. Dear Kathleen, I hope this finds you well. I've recently been reflecting on certain personal matters and remembered our many years working together. I hear you're with Calder and Reed now. I was wondering, do you still have connections in corporate acquisition? I may be looking to make a quiet investment. Something modest, but meaningful. Let me know. Warmly, Grace Sanderson. I reread it twice, corrected a comma, then hit send. Then I sat back, closed my eyes, and felt, for the first time in months, a quiet click of something falling back into place inside me. The kettle had long gone cold, but I didn't mind. It's strange how quickly peace can settle into a person after just one act of defiance. The morning after I sent the email, I felt a calmness I hadn't known in years. Not joy, not exactly, but a kind of quiet steadiness, like the air after a storm that never quite came. I didn't check my inbox right away. I took my time. Watered the violets on the windowsill. Fed the neighbor's cat, who had begun treating my porch like her second home. Made oatmeal the way Charles used to like it. Thick, with a pinch of cinnamon and too much brown sugar. When I finally opened my email, Kathleen's reply was waiting. Subject: A quiet inquiry. Time sent: 2:18 a.m. Grace, I'm so glad to hear from you. I've thought of you often. You were the best mentor I've ever had. I'd be honored to help you. What kind of investment are you looking for? P.S. If this is about Claire's company, I might already know more than I should. I stared at the last sentence for a long time. My fingers hovered above the keys. Then I picked up the phone. Kathleen answered on the second ring. Her voice hadn't changed, still brisk, still no nonsense. Tell me what you know, I said. First, tell me if you're serious, she replied. This isn't a small sandbox. I've never been more serious, I said. Tell me. And she did. Claire's company was called Maratech, a small regional software firm, mostly HR systems. Claire had started there as a sales assistant, worked her way up to regional manager. She was good at structure, at making things look clean and organized, but she wasn't a strategist. And the company, Kathleen explained, had been circling the drain for the last year. Leadership's a mess. The owner, Richard Mara, lost interest after a failed merger. He's been trying to sell under the radar. Quiet buyers, no press. And how do you know this? I asked. Kathleen chuckled. Because I helped his daughter get out of a nasty prenup. I know where his pressure points are. So it's for sale? Not officially, but yes. If you have the funds, we can move fast. I looked across the room, where Claire's kids had left a plastic truck half buried in the throw rug. My name was on their school forms. My money had paid for their uniforms. My food filled their lunchboxes. Yet last week, when Sophie spilled her juice on the floor, Claire didn't even ask me to sit down. She handed me a rag. Yes, I said. I have the funds. Kathleen paused. Grace, are you sure this isn't about revenge? It's not, I said quietly. It's about remembering that I still exist. We talked for 47 minutes. Kathleen had already pulled reports, debt levels, liabilities, staffing rosters. It's not a glamorous business, she warned, and the staff is demoralized. Half the women are doing the work of 3 people. Your daughter is one of them. She always said she deserved more, I murmured. She does, Kathleen agreed. But she's not going to get it from that place. Unless it changes hands. Yes, and even then, she hesitated. She'd never accept anything from you. You know that. She won't know it's me, I said. I want the acquisition quiet. Through a holding name. I can make that happen, Kathleen said. But you need a local director to step in. Someone they can report to until the dust settles. I'll think of someone. Think fast, she said. Because if we move by Friday, you'll have controlling interest by next week. I thanked her, hung up, and then I sat alone in my small living room where the walls still smelled faintly of lemon oil and old carpet glue, and stared at the coat I hadn't dared wear again. It was still in the garment bag, still untouched, as if I had to earn it. Later that day, Claire came by to drop off some documents, something for the kids' after-school club. She didn't even take her coat off, just breezed in, phone in hand, mumbling about how tired she was, how overworked. I swear, if they don't promote me this time, I'm done, she said, standing in the hallway, not even noticing I hadn't invited her in. I didn't answer. I just handed her the papers, watched her glance at my slippers like they offended her, and leave. That night, I pulled out the old fireproof box from under my bed, the one where Charles and I kept everything that mattered: wills, deeds, marriage certificates, Charles's dog tags from Korea. At the bottom, under the insurance policies, was the folder with the sale agreement for our old company. My name on every page, my signature on the dotted line, the amount we got, a quiet fortune. I'd always told myself I'd save it for emergencies, or for Claire's future, or the grandkids. But I realized, sitting there on the floor in my nightgown, that the real emergency was already here. I had become invisible in my own family. I called Kathleen the next morning. "Let's move," I said. And that same afternoon, I wore the coat. No reason, no occasion, just because I damn well felt like it. Kathleen worked fast. By Monday, she'd lined up a shell corporation registered out of state, quiet, clean, untraceable. I signed the authorizations at my dining table between a cup of black tea and a slice of banana bread I no longer baked for anyone else. We named the holding Silver Rook LLC. Charles would have smiled at that. He always liked chess metaphors, always said the rook was the piece no one saw coming. "Initial bid is in," Kathleen said over the phone. Richard Mara didn't even blink. He's tired, wants out. The lawyers are drafting. "What about the team?" I asked. "Do they know anything?" "Not yet. There's a clause in the acquisition that lets you reappoint internal leadership at will. Discreetly." She paused. "You really want to do that?" "Yes. Even if she finds out it's you?" "She won't," I said. "And even if she does, I won't be the one sitting across from her." I hung up and stared out the window. The magnolia tree was shedding again, fat petals wilting in the gutter. I'd meant to clean them last week, but I'd spent that Sunday watching old family videos alone. Birthday parties, school plays, the backyard barbecue where Claire spilled ketchup on her dress and made everyone laugh. She used to look at me with love, you know. Eyes wide, hand always searching for mine in a crowd. That girl disappeared somewhere between her second job promotion and Jeremy's first mortgage payment. Now she looked through me, or worse, past me. I spent that afternoon going through old notebooks, names, numbers, people I hadn't spoken to in years. I found one, Margot Levy, a quiet powerhouse who'd once run our payroll department with steel-eyed precision and a sense of humor that could skin a room. I called her. "Grace," she said, after a moment of stunned silence. "Are you still alive?" "Barely," I smiled. "Want a job?" Margot laughed until she coughed. I told her the whole thing. Not the daughter part, just the acquisition. The need for someone steady, someone smart, someone who could run a team and keep a secret. She didn't even hesitate. Tell me when to start. Claire called that evening. Not to chat, of course. She needed me to pick up Ethan from swim practice. Jeremy's got a late client, she said, and I have this meeting with upper management. Some new division head coming in. They won't say who. New division head? I asked casually. Yeah, some outside hire, I guess. No one knows anything. People are freaking out. She laughed like it was a joke, but I could hear the edge. Maybe they're finally replacing Richard, she added. Took long enough. I said nothing, just nodded. Told her I'd pick up Ethan at 6. And I did. But before I left the house, I paused in the hallway mirror, wore my new coat. Put on lipstick I hadn't touched since Charles's funeral. The boy was happy to see me. He always was. We got hot chocolate on the way home, talked about soccer and math and a YouTube channel he liked, 10 years old and still unguarded, still kind, still mine, in a way his mother no longer was. When I dropped him off, Claire barely looked up from her phone. Thanks, she muttered. I owe you one. I almost laughed. One? No, sweetheart. You owe me your house, your nanny, your weekends, your childcare, your credit card payments, your new fridge, your heating bill, your last vacation. But sure. One. Wednesday morning, Margot sent me the office integration report. Claire's name was there. Regional Manager, Client Development. Salaried, no equity. She's effective, but underused, Margot noted, and she has a chip on her shoulder the size of Milwaukee. Has she said anything? Only that she's waiting for real leadership. Well, I said, now she has it. Should we schedule an intro? Not yet, I said. Let her find her rhythm. Let her prove something. To someone besides herself. There was a silence. You're not going to confront her, are you? No, I said. This isn't revenge, Margot. I just want to see who she is when she's not looking down on someone. Margot whistled. You haven't changed a bit. Oh, I have, I said. I've just remembered who I used to be. That evening, Claire texted. You wouldn't believe the chaos at work. People are scrambling. One woman cried at her desk. They're already talking layoffs. I stared at the message, imagined her typing it, half excited, half terrified, wanting sympathy, expecting comfort. I typed back, maybe this will be the shakeup you've been waiting for. She didn't reply. It was a Friday when the memo went out. Standard corporate language, new ownership, internal restructuring, strategic refocusing, the kind of phrases that say everything and nothing at once. But what made it real, what made people actually stand up from their desks and start whispering in corners, was the second line. Effective immediately, the day-to-day operations will be overseen by our newly appointed Executive Operations Director, Ms. Margot Levy. Claire didn't text me that day, not even to ask for a ride, not even to mention that Ethan had a stomach bug and needed ginger ale. I only knew because I called to check in. Jeremy answered, said she was in meetings all day. Meetings. That's what she called it now. Chaos, panic, silence, suspicion. Meetings. I imagined her sitting stiff-backed in that awful cubicle with the fake wood desk she'd once bragged about. I could almost hear her voice. Margot? Who the hell is Margot? The irony made me smile. She didn't know, of course, that Margot once shared an office with me in a building with no heating and a coffee machine that groaned louder than the fax. I made soup that afternoon, lentil, heavy on the garlic. Charles always said it could raise the dead. I needed the smell in the house. something grounding. Because part of me still questioned all of this. Not the decision. That was firm. But the why. What part of me had allowed it to go this far? Why had I tolerated years of half smiles and guilt-laced gratitude? Claire's backhanded comments, her way of calling me mother like it was a warning label. And worse, why had I paid for it? The house she lived in, the one with the pale green shutters and the custom countertops, I'd put up the down payment. Quietly, because she and Jeremy were struggling after Sophie was born. The Volvo in her driveway? Mine. The 4-week summer camp where Ethan learned to sail? Also mine. But all of it came with silence. No, thank you. No, how are you? No real connection. Just the assumption that I'd always be there. Wallet open, mouth closed. And now, suddenly, here we were. Claire was working under Margot. Margot was reporting to Kathleen. Kathleen was reporting to the board. And the board? The board was me. The girl who once clipped coupons and made Charles's shirts last through 3 winters now controlled the fate of her daughter's career, with a signature and a quiet nod. I didn't feel powerful. I felt steady. There's a difference. Margot called that evening. She requested a meeting. Claire? Yes. Wants to discuss vision alignment. She's already asking about upward mobility. I almost laughed. That was always her phrase. Upward mobility. Like life was an escalator, and she'd just been waiting for someone to press the button. What will you say? I asked. That depends, Margot replied. You want me to keep her close or let her run? Neither. I want her working, really working, not presenting, not spinning, not faking busy. Ah, you want her to sweat. No, I said. I want her to earn. I spent Saturday alone, by choice. Went through old letters. Found one from Claire when she was 22, working at her first job out of college. I hate it, she'd written. They treat me like I'm nobody. I miss your voice. I miss home. That letter was soft at the edges now, like it had been held too often. I folded it back into its envelope and put it away. Then I pulled out the folder marked Trusts. I hadn't updated my estate plans in years. Everything still read. To Claire, Elizabeth Sanderson, and heirs. Everything went to her. The house, the investments, the funds. But I'd changed, and she hadn't. So I made a note to call my lawyer on Monday. Sunday afternoon she came by, unannounced. The doorbell rang just as I was folding laundry. I opened it to find her in jeans and a beige coat, hair pinned too tightly, face unreadable. Hi, she said. Can I come in? I stepped aside without a word. She looked around the house like she hadn't been there in years. Her eyes flicked to the mantelpiece, to Charles's picture, then to the coat on the hook. You wore it, she said. I did. It looks good. Thank you. She sat on the edge of the couch like it was unfamiliar territory. I stayed standing. I wanted to talk to you about something, she began. Work's been strange. So I've heard. She looked up sharply. You heard? I met her gaze. People talk. She blinked. Right. There was a pause. Anyway, this new director, Margot, she's intense, like really intense. She's reorganizing everything, cutting out dead weight. She even asked me to resubmit all my department's metrics. Did you? Of course. But the vibe? It's like she's trying to test people. Maybe she is. Claire frowned. I don't get it. I've been there for 10 years. I know that place better than anyone. But now, suddenly, none of that counts. It's all about results. I said nothing. Let the silence stretch. She narrowed her eyes. Do you know her or something? I didn't answer. She laughed, but it was tight. You always hated that I worked there. No, I said quietly. I hated how they treated you and how you let them. That stopped her. Just for a moment. I've worked hard, she said defensively. I've sacrificed a lot. So have I said. The only difference is I never forgot who I was doing it for. She looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in months, maybe years. Then she stood. I should go, she said. Jeremy's making dinner. I nodded. She reached the door, then hesitated. You know, sometimes you act like I've failed you. I looked at her gently. You haven't failed me, I said. You've just forgotten that I'm not your employee. She didn't respond. She walked out into the dusk, keys jangling, coat stiff against the wind. And for once, I didn't feel left behind. It rained the next morning. The kind of slow, steady rain that makes everything look softer than it really is. I sat by the kitchen window, watching droplets chase each other down the glass. I had nowhere to be, no one to see, and for the first time in a long time, that felt like a gift. Claire hadn't called since our talk. No, thanks for the tea, no passive-aggressive follow-up. Just silence. I didn't mind. Silence was cleaner than her usual noise. By noon, I'd made a list. Not a grocery list or chores. A ledger of sorts. What I'd given, what I'd received. Not just money, either. Time. Trust. Grace. Forgiveness. I flipped back through my check registers. Tuition. Mortgage assistance. Private tutors. Vacations I didn't go on, but paid for. Birthday parties I wasn't invited to, but bought the cake for. I had the receipts. Then I opened the second column. Calls without a request attached. Hugs not given out of obligation. Words like, thank you, I love you, or even, how are you really? It was a short list. So short it could have fit on a business card. I wasn't bitter, but I was done pretending. Margot called after lunch. She's asking questions, she said without preamble. Wants to know who the board is, why she's being sidelined, why her experience isn't being recognized. Let her ask, I said. I did, Margot replied, and then I assigned her the vendor audit project. I almost laughed. The vendor audit was the task no one wanted. Boring, tedious, critical, the kind of assignment that tells you exactly where you stand. She didn't argue, Margot said, but she looked like she'd swallowed vinegar. Good. I've started quietly interviewing her team, she added. They say she's competent but not collaborative, smart but inaccessible. No real mentorship. That landed. Harder than I expected. Because she used to be a girl who read books under the dinner table, who helped younger kids at church tie their shoelaces, who used to bring me dandelions and call them garden fireworks. When did that girl get buried? When did she learn to roll her eyes at kindness? That night, I pulled down the dusty photo album from the top shelf. Charles had labeled it Family, 1986-2002. Inside were the years that mattered most. Birthdays, beach trips, graduations, scraped knees, and ice cream cones. Claire was in nearly every photo, bright-eyed, always reaching for something. A balloon, a sparkler, her father's hand. There was one picture from the state fair. Claire, 8 years old, holding a ribbon for a watercolor she'd painted of a house with crooked windows and too much sky. She'd been so proud. That girl would have written thank you cards. That girl would have noticed. What happened between then and now wasn't sudden. It was incremental. Distance doesn't come all at once. It arrives in inches. But now I was walking in the other direction. Monday morning, I met with my lawyer. I hadn't told anyone I was coming. Just walked in with my coat zipped up and my folder under my arm. Mr. Howe had been handling my estate since Charles passed. A quiet man, meticulous, trusted. "I want to amend the will," I said as soon as I sat down. "To remove your daughter?" "No, to redefine the terms. Claire will get what's fair, not what's automatic." He adjusted his glasses. "And how would you define fair?" "Conditional," I said. "Based on behavior, not biology." He nodded. "We can include a values clause. It's not unusual anymore, especially with trusts." "I also want to create a charitable fund," I added, "for working mothers over 50 who've been pushed out of the workforce." Howe smiled. "That sounds like something your husband would have supported." "It is." "And what do you want to name it?" I didn't hesitate. "The Sanderson Resilience Fund." He made notes. "We'll set up a board of trustees?" "Yes, and I'd like to appoint someone as interim manager, someone with integrity, not family." On my way out, I stopped by the post office. Mailed a package to Margot, old records I thought might help her in her new role. Vendor histories, contact lists, notes from when I used to run similar audits myself. No note inside, just the files. Let the work speak for itself. The next day, I got an email from Claire. Subject line: audit questions. The body of the message was oddly formal. "Grace, would you happen to know if we had a standing relationship with Aerotech Logistics back in 2019? Their invoice patterns don't match the rest of the vendor ledger. Also, were you involved in choosing their contract originally? I noticed your signature on a scanned PDF in our archive. Best, Claire." No greeting, no warmth, just business. But she had to write it. She had to ask me for something. Had to acknowledge my name, even if she didn't understand where it now sat on the chain of command. I replied. Aerotech was a temporary vendor we used during a transition period. Rates were higher than standard, but they delivered on short notice. We discontinued use after Q2. Let me know if you need access to the original contract. Regards, Grace. I didn't sign it Mom. That wasn't the role I was being asked to fill. Not anymore. The contract arrived on Thursday. A sleek envelope, heavier than it needed to be, with embossed lettering and too much polish. It was from Calder and Reed's acquisition division, addressed to me by my formal name, Grace Eleanor Sanderson, with the final purchase agreement enclosed. Silver Rook LLC was now, legally and entirely, the owner of Maritech Solutions. The ink was barely dry. Claire didn't know. Not yet. Margot called later that morning. She's requesting a reassignment. To what? Strategy and development. Says she's underutilized. Thinks her skills would be better spent in a planning role. Did you approve it? I told her I'd consider it after the audit. I smiled. Margot had always known how to hold a line. She's not used to proving herself, Margot added. She expects credit in advance, respect without reciprocation. She learned that somewhere, I murmured. There was a pause. You don't owe her anything, you know. I do, I said. I owe her a mother who finally tells the truth. That afternoon, I took out one of Charles's old books, The Art of Structure. He used to mark passages with paper clips. I found one on page 143. A structure is only as sound as the integrity of the beam that holds the weight nobody sees. It made me think of the years I spent holding it all up. The babysitting, the late-night phone calls, the emergency deposits, the quiet endurance. No applause, no acknowledgement, just expectation. And when I needed something, company, kindness, care, It was as if I'd spoken in a language no one understood anymore. That night, I couldn't sleep. Rain tapped the roof in a slow rhythm, and I sat by the window in my robe, turning over Claire's last email in my head. Clinical. Precise. No warmth. No question beyond the numbers. But what did I expect? When you train someone to see you as a resource, don't be surprised when they forget you're a person. At 3:27 a.m., I opened a new document on my laptop. Title: Claire Sanderson, a letter I may never send. I started typing. You used to ask for bedtime stories. You liked the ones where the mother made soup out of nothing and fed the whole village. You used to say, "That's you, Mama." Now, when I make soup, you call it old-fashioned. When you cry about work, I listen. When I ask about your life, you say you're tired. You're always tired, but somehow never too tired to ask for help. One day, you'll look at a woman my age and wonder what she gave up to be so invisible. You'll wonder why she looks right through you. And maybe, just maybe, you'll understand. I didn't finish it, just saved the file and closed the lid. On Friday morning, Claire texted, "Can you take Sophie on Sunday? Jeremy and I have tickets to that wine tasting thing." No greeting, no please, just the assumption. I typed back, "No, I have plans." A full minute passed, then another text. "Plans? What kind of plans?" I didn't reply, because I didn't owe her an explanation. Later that day, Margot called again. "She's pressing harder now," she said. "Says she deserves to be part of the company's future planning. She's mentioned her connections, her years of service. Let her talk. She's also starting to ask who owns the holding company." I closed my eyes. "She'll find out eventually." "She will," Margot agreed. "But not from me." "Thank you." "She's not a bad employee, Grace. She just never had to climb without a safety net." "I know. Do you want me to bring her in?" "Not yet." That evening, I went for a walk. Just through the neighborhood. Past the houses I'd seen rise and fall through paint jobs and porch repairs. The Hendersons' maple tree was starting to turn. Someone down the block had put out a scarecrow too early. The world moved on, indifferent to my quiet rebellion. Good. I'd rather fight in silence than live in someone else's narrative. At home, I sat with a cup of chamomile tea and reopened the letter. I added a final line. "I loved you when you were small, when you were angry, when you were lost. I still do. But love isn't a leash, and I won't wear one anymore. I didn't send it, but I printed it, folded it, put it in the same folder where I kept the revised will, the ownership documents, and the Trust Foundation outline. One day, maybe, she'd read it. Maybe she'd understand. And if not, well, I'd finally remembered who I was, and she was about to find out." The company newsletter came out Monday morning, a polished PDF with cheerful fonts, bright colors, and obligatory photos of people pretending to laugh at conference tables. I wasn't meant to see it, of course, but Kathleen forwarded me a copy with a one-line message. "Thought you might enjoy page 3. I opened it with low expectations. Page 1, welcome note from the interim communications director. Page 2, team spotlights, 2 engineers in matching cardigans holding whiteboards. Page 3, a letter from our new executive operations director, Margot. There she was, seated at the long glass conference table I used to scrub down after late meetings. Her hair shorter now, silver streaks sharp against dark curls. Her expression calm, direct. The headline read, "Restructure with Purpose," and beneath it, "We're not tearing down, we're digging in, realigning the bones of this place so that the people doing the work, the real work, finally have a structure that sees them, supports them, and doesn't burn them out. This is about clarity, not chaos. And if you've been coasting, you'll feel the shift. I smiled. It was everything I would have said, except I hadn't needed to say it. Margot had become the voice I used to carry, sharp, fair, unafraid, and now she was Claire's boss. That afternoon, Claire called me, for the first time in nearly a week. "Hi," she said lightly. "Do you have a second?" Of course. Her voice was casual, practiced, but too smooth. I knew the signs. Claire always smoothed her tone when she was trying to hide something. "So, I've been thinking about everything going on at work and how things feel off. Off how? Like there's more happening than what we're being told." "Go on." "There's talk now, rumors, about outside funding, new ownership. No one knows who. But Margot reports directly to someone we've never seen, and the decisions feel deliberate. Isn't that what people want? Deliberate leadership?" She paused. "Yes, I guess. But something feels personal, like someone's got a map and the rest of us are just trying to guess what street we're on." I stirred my tea, let her sit with the silence. She continued, a bit more hesitantly. "Some of the staff think it might be a larger firm buying us to flip, but then others think it's a private investor. Why would someone invest in a sinking company?" That's exactly what I said. "Unless," she caught herself, "unless they're not here to flip, they're here to reshape. And you don't like being reshaped." Another pause. "No, I just," she faltered. "I just don't like not knowing who's pulling the strings." Ah. There it was. The thing she'd never say out loud. I liked it better when I was at the top of the small hill. "Well," I said gently, "sometimes the best thing you can do is get to work, do it well, and stop trying to guess who's in the balcony." She didn't reply right away. Then, with forced lightness, she said, "I suppose. Anyway, Sophie has a recital next week. You should come." "I'd like that. We'll save you a seat. Jeremy's parents might come too. Don't be late. You know she always looks for you." I could have said 100 things then. Asked if Sophie even knew I wasn't invited to her last one. Asked why I only seemed to get included when a photo opportunity was at stake. But I didn't. I said, "Tell her I'm proud of her." Because I was. Even if the woman raising her had forgotten how pride feels when it's given without strings. Margot texted me later that day. She's asking more questions. She thinks the owner is a man. I didn't correct her. I replied, "Let her keep guessing. It's a good exercise." She responded with one word: "Rook." I laughed. That night, I dug out one of my old journals. 1997, the year Claire graduated college. The spine was cracked, the pages yellowing. In it, I'd written about how proud I was of her, how nervous I was that she'd moved too fast, trust the wrong people, how I wanted to give her a cushion, but not a crutch. I read the entries slowly, tea cooling beside me. There was a line written on a day when I must have been feeling especially invisible. "It's a strange thing, to give everything to someone and watch them treat it like air. But maybe it's not her fault. Maybe I taught her that silence was love." I closed the book. Silence was not love. Silence was comfort. For them. But love, real love, speaks. And soon I'd speak too. Not in anger, not in revenge. Just plainly. Like a mother. Like a woman. Like a name on the dotted line. The truth came out on a Wednesday. Not with fireworks, not with screaming. Just a quiet unraveling, like a loose thread tugged too far. It started with an email. Claire forwarded it to me without a subject line, just a screenshot and a single sentence. Did you know about this? The image showed the corporate structure chart someone had leaked internally. Most of the names were initials, but one wasn't. Silver Rook LLC, primary stakeholder, Grace E. Sanderson, no logo, no press release. Just my name, in small black text, confirming what no one was supposed to know yet. It wasn't Kathleen's fault. The name must have slipped through in a filing summary. No company runs perfectly quiet forever. I stared at the screen for a long time, not because I was afraid, because I wondered what part of Claire had cracked when she saw it. She called an hour later, didn't text first, just rang 3 times in a row, like urgency could bend time. Hello? I said evenly. There was a pause. You bought the company. Not a question. I said nothing. Tell me I'm wrong, she said. Still, I said nothing. You bought the company I work for. Her voice rose, thin and sharp. Why? What is this? Some sort of punishment? Some lesson? No. Then what? What am I supposed to think, Mother? You're supposed to think whatever you want, Claire. That's not an answer. I kept my voice steady. You asked me what kind of plans I had, remember? When I said I couldn't babysit Sophie? These were the plans. A breath caught on the other end. She hadn't expected that. I don't understand, she said finally. Why would you do this? Because I could, she scoffed. Is this about the coat? About that stupid coat? No, Claire. That coat just reminded me that I've spent 15 years asking for permission to exist in your life. And I stopped. There was a long silence. I heard a door creak in the background, the faint hum of office air conditioning. You could have told me, she said, but now her voice was smaller. You would have told me not to. She didn't argue. Does Jeremy know? Not unless you tell him. And Margot? She knew. Of course she did, Claire muttered. That woman has been circling me like a hawk for weeks. She's doing her job. She's humiliating me. No, I said gently. She's managing you. Claire exhaled, shaky. This is so messed up. No, I repeated. This is structure, accountability, the very things you said your job lacked. She was quiet. I never meant to hurt you, she whispered. You didn't hurt me, I said. You ignored me, which, in its own way, is worse. I didn't mean to do that either, but you did. Silence again, the kind that thuds in your chest. Are you going to fire me? She asked. The question hit like a stone through glass. No, I said. I'm going to give you the one thing I never got from you. What? A chance. She didn't respond. I'm not taking the company apart, I added. I'm rebuilding it, with the kind of integrity you always claimed you wanted. I do want that, she said quickly. Then show it. More silence. Then, quietly, she said, I have a meeting in 5 minutes. I know. She didn't say goodbye, just ended the call. That evening, I sat on the porch with a glass of orange juice and no regrets. The air was thick with the scent of wet earth. Somewhere down the street, a neighbor's sprinkler ticked softly over a dying lawn. I watched the sky shift from gray to gold, then finally to indigo. Kathleen called just after 8. Well, she said, the board knows. HR knows. And by now, half the building knows. Let them. She's not quitting. Good. But she's shaken. She should be. Kathleen was quiet for a beat. Then, how are you? I smiled. Calm? She might never forgive you. I'm not asking her to. Then what are you asking? Respect, I said. Or at the very least, awareness. She whistled softly. You always were patient. Not anymore. Before bed, I opened the letter again, the one I'd written but never sent. I added one final sentence at the bottom. You can hate me for the truth, or you can thank me for the mirror. Then I folded it, sealed it, and wrote her name on the front in pen. Claire. Not daughter, not honey, just Claire. A woman who had spent years demanding status, and now, finally, had a clear view of where she stood. Claire didn't call the next day, or the day after that, and I didn't chase her. The silence wasn't painful anymore. It was clean. No noise, no guilt. Just space to breathe, to think, to exist outside of the title Mom as she'd narrowed it down to mean caretaker, bank, background noise. Margot sent me the weekly report on Friday. Claire's behavior is shifting, she wrote. Less entitled, more cautious. She asked for feedback, actual feedback. That surprised me more than anything. Claire never asked questions. She issued opinions. She presented, performed, never invited scrutiny. It had always been easier for her to lead with certainty, even when she didn't have it. She also stayed late, Margot added. Didn't make a fuss about it, just stayed. I read the line 3 times, not because I didn't believe it, but because I wasn't sure what it meant. Was it guilt or growth? I wasn't owed an answer. Saturday morning, I ran into Mrs. Wilkins at the grocery store. She's 84 now, still sharp as vinegar. She peered into my cart like she had every right. Stocking up, Grace? Just restocking tea and jam. She looked me up and down. You look different. Do I? Like you remembered your spine. I laughed. It's been there all along. I just stopped hiding it. She nodded, satisfied. Good. Women our age get used to folding, and then one day we forget how to stand up straight. I went home and cleaned the house, not out of duty, but because I wanted to. I polished the banister, reorganized the cupboard with the jars I never used but couldn't throw away. I even repotted the dusty little fern in the corner. The one Claire said looked too old to bother with. It was thriving, just needed water. Sunday morning, I got a knock on the door. Claire. No call, no warning, just her, standing on my porch with a reusable grocery bag in one hand and a visible effort not to look too small. Hi, she said. Hi. I brought muffins. I nodded, stepped aside, let her in. She looked around like the furniture had rearranged itself. I didn't know what kind you liked anymore, she added. So I got a mix. I took the bag, placed it gently on the counter. Tea? Sure. We didn't speak until I poured it. She sat at the table, hands curled around the mug. No jewelry today, no work blouse. Just a soft gray sweater I hadn't seen before. No makeup. I'm not here to yell, she said. I didn't think you were. She struggled. I've had a week to process. I waited. I was angry. At first, really angry. I felt exposed, embarrassed. Like you were watching me the whole time, judging every move. I wasn't. I know that now, she said quickly. I've had time to look at things differently. I sipped my tea. She swallowed. You didn't buy the company to punish me, did you? No. She nodded slowly. Then why? Because I could, I said, same as before. And because I was tired of being invisible. Her eyes shimmered. She didn't cry. Not quite. But she blinked more than usual. I didn't mean to make you feel that way. But you did. Yes, she whispered. We sat in the quiet. She picked at a spot on the rim of her mug. I thought I was doing everything right, working hard, providing, trying to keep up, and somehow I turned into someone I don't really like. I stayed quiet. Jeremy said I should apologize, she added, rolling her eyes faintly. He said, "Your mother's not someone you want to go to war with." That made me smile. He's not wrong. Claire exhaled through her nose. It's hard for me to admit when I'm wrong. I know. But I am. About a lot of things. About you. Another silence, then softly. I didn't know how much you'd given us. Not really. I mean, I knew, but I didn't carry it. I just let you. Yes. She looked at me. I'm sorry, Mom. Not Mother. Not in that stiff, transactional way she usually used, but soft, like when she was young. Thank you, I said. She nodded, took another sip, then reached into her purse and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. I found this in the office printer. I think Margot left it by mistake. I took it. Unfolded it. It was my letter. The one I wrote and saved. Not sent, not printed. Until now. Claire watched me. I didn't mean to see it, she said quickly. But I did, and I read it. I didn't speak. She continued. That part where you said silence wasn't love, that hit me. Hard. I nodded. You're right. I got used to your silence. Took it as permission. I didn't realize how heavy it was to carry everything without a voice. It is, I said. But I chose it. For a while. I know, but I'm choosing differently now. I looked at her. She wasn't playing a role. She wasn't defending or excusing. She was present. And that was more than I'd had from her in years. We finished our tea in a stillness that felt full, not empty. When she left, she hugged me without hesitation. Not for show, not out of guilt. Just her arms around me and mine around her, and nothing in between. It didn't fix everything, but it didn't have to. The next week passed like the first warm days after a long winter. Nothing dramatic, nothing fast. Just small shifts. The kind you feel in your shoulders before you realize you've been walking hunched for too long. Claire didn't call every day, but when she did, her voice was different. Less clipped, less performative. She asked about my day, actually asked. She didn't pivot back to herself after 30 seconds. She waited. I didn't rush to fill the silence. I let it breathe. We weren't suddenly close again. It wasn't a movie ending. It was something quieter, but real. I was careful not to reach too far. That had been my mistake for years, overreaching, holding out more than was asked, offering what was never earned, and then folding in shame when it was met with impatience or dismissal. Now I listened, measured, and when I did speak, I spoke plainly. On Wednesday, Margot emailed a company-wide update. The vendor audit was complete. The report was clean. Staff adjustments were in motion. At the bottom of the email was one short note. Special thanks to Claire Sanderson for her diligence, accuracy, and initiative during the review process. It was professional, earned, no fanfare, earned. But I knew what it meant, and I knew what it cost her to deserve it. That evening, Claire came over. She didn't bring muffins this time, just herself, and a paper bag with 3 limes and a bottle of soda water. I wanted to make spritzers, she said. Remember when you used to make those in the summer? I do. She looked down, half smiling. I thought they were fancy. They were just cold club soda with lemon. Well, she shrugged. I was 7. Everything with bubbles felt fancy. We sat on the porch with 2 glasses, a bowl of peanuts between us, and the last of the sunlight warming the railings. She told me about work. Honestly this time. No spin. I think I scared some people, she said. I used to push too hard, speak too fast. Now I'm trying to listen. It's harder than I thought. It takes practice. She nodded. Margot gave me real feedback. Said I rely too much on being right. That I use it like armor. Do you? Yes, she admitted. But I don't want to anymore. I believed her. Not because she said it the right way, because she didn't say it to impress me. She stayed longer than usual, helped me put away dishes, didn't check her phone once. At the door, she hesitated. Did I ever make you proud? She asked. The question came so quietly, I almost missed it. Yes, I said. Often. Even before? Yes. She nodded, eyes glassy, but not falling apart. That means a lot. I know. And then she left. No hug this time, but no avoidance either. Just her walking down the path with something more honest in her shoulders. That night, I opened the envelope with the foundation documents, the Sanderson Resilience Fund. All finalized now. The account open. The board named. I'd appointed Kathleen as chair, Margot as co-director. The first initiative was already drafted, career training programs for older women re-entering the workforce. I signed the release letter. Then I wrote a personal note to include in the first press packet. This fund is not built from rage or revenge. It is built from memory, from all the women who gave quietly, endured quietly, served quietly. This is not a monument. It's a doorway. I sealed the envelope. Put it by the door. In the morning, I wore my coat. The ash blue one. The one I'd once been scolded for buying. I wore it to the bakery, to the bank, to the post office. And everywhere I went, I held my head just a little higher. Not because anyone was watching, but because I wasn't hiding anymore. That afternoon, Claire texted. Just sent Sophie's new school application. Used your address as backup if that's okay. She said she wanted to be close to Grandma just in case. I stared at the screen for a moment, then replied, That's more than okay. And it was. More than okay. It was the first time in years that the word grandma felt like a role I could wear proudly, without it erasing everything else I was. Because now, I was still a grandmother, but also Grace. A name she had to say with respect. And say it, she would. The following week, I was invited to speak at a luncheon for the foundation. I almost said no. It's not that I was afraid of speaking. Years of boardrooms and budget meetings had cured me of that. But this was different. This was about me. Not as someone's wife, or someone's mother, or someone's support beam, but just Grace. Still, I agreed. The event was modest. 30, maybe 40 women gathered in the side room of a small downtown hotel. Round tables, terracotta-colored napkins, the kind of floral centerpiece that always ends up on someone's Facebook. Kathleen gave the opening remarks, spoke about resilience, about structure, about the quiet women behind loud success stories. And then she introduced me. Grace Sanderson built companies before it was common, raised a family without applause, and has now returned, on her own terms, to make sure no one like her goes unseen again. I walked to the podium in my ash blue coat. Not for style, for memory. The room was warm, but I kept it on. Let it rest on my shoulders like a shield. I didn't prepare notes. I didn't need to. I looked out at the women, some older, some just entering the stretch of years where the world begins to stop calling you by name. And I spoke. I'm not here to inspire you, I said. I'm here to confirm what you already know. A few chuckles, a few heads tilted, waiting. You already know what it's like to give too much, to lower your voice, to fold the corners of yourself so someone else can take up more room. You've done it at work, at home, in rooms where your name was known only when they needed something from you. Quiet nods. I did that for years. I made myself small because I thought love required it. I stayed silent because I thought dignity lived in patience. But silence is not dignity, and love should not cost you your identity. The room stilled. I bought a company last year. Quietly. Purposefully. The company where my daughter worked. I didn't tell her. Not out of revenge, but because I wanted to understand who I had become and what I was still capable of. Someone gasped, soft but audible. I watched her dismiss me for years, I continued. Not out of malice, but out of habit. She treated me the way many people treat women over a certain age, like I was expired. Decorative at best, irrelevant at worst. I paused. That coat, I said, touching my collar, was the tipping point. I bought it for myself and she rolled her eyes. Told me I was wasting money, as if comfort and beauty and self-respect were indulgences I hadn't earned. I let the silence settle. And so I stopped asking for space. I took it. A stillness hung in the air, not dramatic, not tense, just respectful. Sometimes the most radical thing you can do as a woman, I said, is not leave the room, but stay in it with your name on the deed. The applause was soft at first, then steady. Some were clapping for me, others, I think, for themselves, because every woman in that room had held something together without being thanked for it. Afterward, one woman came up to me, white curls, a cane, eyes sharp. "You didn't just build a fund," she said. "You gave the rest of us permission." I smiled. "You never needed it." "Still," she said, "it helps." Claire didn't come. I hadn't invited her, not out of spite, but because this part of my life wasn't a performance to include her in. It wasn't about reconciling, it was about restoring. Still, she texted me that night. "Saw pictures from the luncheon. You looked strong. Sophie said you looked like a queen." I stared at the message, typed, "Tell her queens earn their crowns." Then added, "And tell her I love her." She replied, "She knows. I think I'm starting to know it too." I didn't reply right away. I finished my tea, closed the curtains, let the house breathe. That's the thing no one tells you about growing older. Not everything gets heavier. Some things, like self-worth, get lighter. Once you stop trying to carry everyone else's version of you, and for the first time in decades, I was only carrying mine. The first cold snap came early that year. October barely started, and already the trees on Pine Avenue were shedding like they were trying to forget summer altogether. The mornings turned sharper. I had to pull out the thicker blankets. Even the birds outside the kitchen window sounded quieter, like they too were conserving energy. I didn't mind the cold. It made everything feel simpler. Honest. Nothing soft to hide behind. Claire dropped Sophie off that Thursday afternoon. No frantic text. No last-minute scramble. Just a calm, pre-arranged visit. She came to the door holding Sophie's hand and a small backpack with her name stitched on it. "Just a couple of hours," she said. "Jeremy's picking her up after work." I nodded. Sophie ran past us both, straight to the living room. Claire hesitated. "She's been asking about you more," she said. "That's good. She told her teacher you were the boss of a big company. Said you wear nice coats and read everything." I laughed. "That sounds like her. She's proud of you." There was something careful in Claire's voice, like she was trying to set a table that had collapsed too many times. "And you?" I asked, not unkindly. Claire didn't blink. "I'm learning how to be." That, more than anything, felt real. I closed the door after she left and found Sophie on the floor, already pulling crayons from a plastic case. "I'm drawing you," she said matter of fact. "Oh?" She nodded, focused. "You're wearing your coat, and you're holding a sword. But it's not a mean sword. It's just in case." I smiled. "That sounds about right." She kept drawing, tongue pressed to her upper lip in concentration. "Are you really a boss?" she asked, eyes still on the page. "I help make decisions. Like what kind of cookies the office eats." "Not exactly," I said, "but sometimes close." She seemed satisfied with that. After she left, I found her drawing on the kitchen counter. Me, in the ash blue coat, standing in front of a big building. Windows crooked, lines wild. But the look on the face she drew, it wasn't angry. It wasn't stern. It was steady. I kept the picture, taped it inside the pantry door. Not for anyone else. Just for me. Margot emailed later that day. One line, "She's stepping up." I knew who she meant. Claire had volunteered to lead a mentorship pilot at the company, said she wanted to help women newer to the industry avoid some of the mistakes she made, asked for no title, no raise, just the chance to rebuild something she'd taken for granted. I didn't call to thank her. That wasn't the point anymore. We were past proving things to each other. Now, it was about living them. Saturday morning, I visited the cemetery. Charles's headstone was simple. Just his name, his dates, and a line he chose himself before he passed. Built it with my hands, but loved it with my heart. I brought no flowers, just my coat, and my hands tucked into the pockets. "Claire's growing," I said softly. "And not just upward, like she used to measure things. Outward. Deeper." I paused. I let her go too long without hearing my real voice. I see that now. I thought silence meant peace, but it just made a hole. The wind shifted. A leaf scraped against the stone. "I'm filling it now," I added, "but not with apologies, with example." When I got home, there was a letter in the mailbox. Handwritten. Claire's neat script, smaller than it used to be. Inside, "Mom, I've been thinking about what you said, about silence, about presence. I don't remember the last time I looked at you and saw a full person instead of a role. That's on me. You gave me everything, and I still made you feel like nothing. I wish I could undo it. But I know that's not how time works. So I'll just say this. I'm still watching. I'm still learning. And I'm proud of you. Claire." There was no card, no decoration. Just a folded piece of paper and a name written like it finally understood weight. I didn't cry. I didn't need to. But I did take the letter to the pantry, opened the door, and taped it next to Sophie's drawing. Two women. One who still colored outside the lines, and one who was just learning how. The following weeks settled into something I can only call balance. Not harmony, not perfection, just balance. The kind that comes when everyone stops pretending they're owed more than what they've earned. Claire didn't overcompensate. She didn't swing from silence to smothering. She didn't try to rewrite history with too many "I've been thinking" conversations. And for that, I was grateful. She simply showed up. Consistently. Calmly. No performances. She called when she said she would. She brought Sophie over without making it a favor she was bestowing. She texted just to say, "Hope today was kind to you." That alone was a miracle. One Tuesday afternoon, I visited the office, not to make an entrance, just to meet with the Foundation's legal advisor, whose firm happened to share a floor with Maritek. I walked through the lobby like I belonged, which I did. There was no announcement, no pause in the chatter. The receptionist glanced up, then back at her screen. That, more than anything, felt like power. Not being noticed, just being normal. I took the elevator up, walked past the open office, saw Claire at her desk. She didn't see me at first. She was leaning over someone's monitor, speaking low and slow, listening with her whole body. The woman next to her, a younger employee, nodded, relaxed, trusted. Claire's posture was different now. Not tense, not defensive. Her arms were loose, her voice steady, like she didn't need to prove anything anymore, just contribute. She saw me only as I was leaving the elevator again, on my way out. She smiled. Small, no performance. I smiled back. Didn't stop, didn't wave. We didn't need to. That night, she called. "Did you drop by today?" "I did." "Why didn't you say anything?" "I didn't need to." She paused. "Well, I'm glad you came." "I was glad to see you," I said. And I meant it. She was quiet for a moment. Then, "I'm trying not to mess this up." "You won't?" "I might." "You'll learn." She exhaled. Something slow and shaky. "That's the first time you've said that to me without trying to fix something." "I don't fix anymore," I said. "I build." At the next board meeting, Margot gave her report. The mentorship program Claire had proposed was already running. 5 employees enrolled, all women, 2 over 50. "The older ones say they feel seen for the first time in a decade," Margot said. "And the younger ones? They're shocked anyone still cares." "They're not wrong," I said. Kathleen leaned forward. "We're going to need a face for this in Q1. The Foundation's public push is coming. You can't hide forever, Grace." I smiled. "I'm not hiding. I'm choosing where to be seen." "And Claire?" Kathleen asked. "She's not ready to be the face of anything," I said. "But she's finally becoming a person who doesn't need to be." Margot nodded. "It's better that way. Quiet leadership sticks longer." Later that evening, I found a note tucked into the mailbox. No envelope. Claire's handwriting. I saw the pantry. 3 words. That's all. No elaboration. But I knew what she meant. She'd seen the drawing Sophie made, and the letter she'd written herself taped beside it. She'd seen that I'd kept it. Not in a drawer, not in a box. On display, where it could live beside the version of her that still believed in swords and softness. I didn't text her back. I made soup instead. Lentil, heavy on the garlic. Then I sat by the window, coat draped over the back of the chair, tea steeping in silence. Some things weren't broken anymore. Not because we fixed them, but because we stopped pretending they hadn't been cracked. It snowed early this year. Not much. Just a thin layer, enough to soften the roads and cover the roof tiles in a hush. I stood by the window that morning with my tea, watching the street disappear under white. I used to dread winter. The ache in my joints, the silence in the house, the way the cold made everything feel still, too still, like a life paused, not lived. But this year, it felt different. I wasn't waiting for anything, not a call, not a thank you, not some overdue gesture of grace from a daughter too busy proving her worth to recognize mine, because I had stopped living like love was a debt I needed to be repaid. The board met one last time before the holiday season. Just a short meeting to sign off on the first official release from the Sanderson Resilience Fund. 4 grants awarded, 2 job retraining placements confirmed, 1 woman rehired into her industry after 9 years. "She cried when I called," Margot said, reading from her report. "Said she hadn't heard her full name spoken with respect in nearly a decade." I felt that line settle somewhere deep. because it wasn't about the job. It never is. It's about being seen as someone with weight again, a full name, a full story, not a shadow of who you used to be. When the meeting ended, Kathleen lingered behind. "You've done something rare, Grace," she said. "Built a legacy without shouting about it." I smiled. The ones that last usually don't need a microphone. "Will you go public next quarter?" "I think I will." "You ready to put your name to all of it?" "I already did," I said. "Now I'm just letting people read it." Claire came over that weekend. No reason, no occasion. She brought groceries, her idea, not mine. Nothing fancy, just what she remembered I liked. The good tea. The marmalade I once told her reminded me of Sunday mornings with Charles. We unpacked the bags together. She moved slower now. Not lazy, just present. Not filling every silence, not narrating everything she did. Just being. Sophie was at a birthday party. Jeremy was working. It was just us. She made the tea this time, placed the mug down gently. "I read your grant release," she said. "I'm glad. You didn't mention me anywhere. I wasn't supposed to." She hesitated. "Still, I expected—" "What?" "I don't know. A line. A nod." "You're not a footnote, Claire. You're a chapter, a long one, but not the headline." She blinked, nodded slowly. "That's fair." We sat quietly, wind tapping the windows, the scent of cinnamon from the candle Sophie left here last week. Then Claire said something I didn't expect. "I used to think power meant getting the last word." I waited. "Now I think it means knowing when not to speak. Just letting something be true." She looked up. "I'm sorry it took me so long. I didn't say, it's okay. It wasn't. And it didn't need to be. But I did reach across the table, rested my hand over hers. Just enough." She looked older now, not in a worn-out way, in a way that said she'd finally stopped resisting the truth of who she was. And who I was. Not a bank, not a doormat, not a ghost she borrowed strength from. Just her mother. A woman with a name and a spine. After she left, I stood in the kitchen and looked around. Nothing had changed. The chairs were still slightly crooked. The light over the stove still flickered if I bumped it. But the air felt different. Not lighter, not cleaner, just more honest. I went to the pantry, opened the door, looked at the drawing again, and the letter. Then I took a pen. Below Claire's final line, "I'm proud of you," I wrote, "I finally believe you." Then I closed the door. No ceremony, no applause, just closure. The kind you don't announce but carry with you in the way you walk through your own house. It ended the way most things do, quietly. No dramatic curtain drop, no final confrontation. Just the slow, steady realization that a chapter had closed and the next one had already begun while you weren't looking. Claire came by one evening, unannounced. It had been a long day. I was in my slippers, cardigan buttoned wrong, a pot of stew on the stove that didn't need company. She let herself in. "Smells like 1994 in here," she said. I smiled. That was a good year for stew. She didn't sit right away, just hovered in the doorway like she had when she was little, unsure if she was welcome after a tantrum. "Can I stay a bit?" "You already are." She sat. There was no agenda, no favor to ask. She didn't bring Sophie, didn't mention work, just sat at the table, chin in her palm, watching the steam rise from her tea. "I told Jeremy what you did," she said after a while. "What part?" "All of it." I waited. "He said you were brave, that most people wouldn't have the nerve to take back space like that. Jeremy always had more sense than he let on." She smiled, looked down. I think he respects you more than he respects me right now. That's not the competition I entered. I know. Another pause. He asked me something. Something I didn't know how to answer. What? He asked when the last time was that I saw you as a woman, not just a function, or a fallback, or a role. I didn't respond. And I couldn't answer, she said. Not honestly. I didn't even realize I'd stopped seeing you that way. That's how erasure works, I said softly. Not all at once. Just inch by inch. She nodded. I don't want to do that anymore, she added. Not with you. Not with Sophie. Not with myself. There was nothing to say to that. Nothing she needed from me but the room to mean it. She stood up before I could speak. I just wanted you to know, she said, that I see it now. The whole of you. Not just the parts that served me. And then she leaned down, kissed the top of my head like I had done to her hundreds of times before, and left. The next morning, I opened the windows early. The air had that late autumn sharpness, where the cold doesn't bite, but it reminds. I brewed a strong pot of tea and brought out my notebook. Not the business ledger, not the list of things to fix. Just the soft one with the stitched spine. The one I hadn't touched in months. At the top of a clean page, I wrote, "What I've learned too late to care who disagrees." Then I wrote, "You are allowed to stop answering the door." Giving everything doesn't mean they understand the cost. Silence isn't grace. It's erasure in polite wrapping. Dignity doesn't ask for permission. It's not too late. Not ever. Not for voice. Not for joy. Not for power. I didn't write her name, because this wasn't about Claire anymore. It was about me. I went to the office one last time before the end of the year. Just for a short meeting with Kathleen and Margot. No ceremony. Just a transition plan. I'm stepping down from day-to-day oversight, I said. The foundation is strong. It doesn't need me in the weeds. You sure? Kathleen asked. Yes, I said. This wasn't about control. It was about correction. Margot smiled. You've corrected more than you realize. I stood at the window before I left, looked down at the people moving through the lobby. Young ones. Older ones. Women with quiet hands and tired eyes. Women who still held too much in silence. They wouldn't know my name, but they would feel the structure. That was enough. The coat hangs by the door now. I still wear it. Not every day. Just when I want to remember. I am not a woman who was saved. I am a woman who returned to herself. If you're still reading, if something in this story rang familiar, bitter, or warm, I want you to do one thing. Don't wait. Not for their apology. Not for their understanding. Not for some moment when they finally see what you did. You already know. That's enough. So speak. Walk. Buy the coat. Take the class. Say no. Start late. Take up space. Write your name where it was erased. And if this story found you, it's because some part of you knows you're not done yet. And you never needed their permission.